Well, hey there, everybody. Welcome to the show. Hope everybody's doing okay. Welcome to Ask Away. As usual, I'm going to ask everybody who is with me right now live in the live chat, if you have questions or things you want me to talk about or whatever, please hold on to them until later in the show, because first I'm going to answer questions that were submitted ahead of time by my wonderful, beautiful Patreon patrons. And when I get done answering their questions, then I will turn my full attention to the live chat and we'll hang out and talk about whatever you want for the rest of the show. But first, let's go to the Patreon questions. And the first one of those comes from Dr. Babylon, who says, Steve, has the storming of the Capitol convinced you to change your mind on gun control and to recognize the futility of disarmament? There's a dangerous imbalance of gun ownership in this country, too few guns in the hands of liberals and leftists. So, to answer your question, um, has it convinced me to change my mind on gun control and the futility of disarmament? Nope. I do not know what could convince me that the answer to any of the problems in the United States right now, and specifically problems related to guns and gun control and gun ownership, is to give people more guns. But no, that the events at the Capitol were not it. I do not think that the solution to any of America's problems lies in getting more guns to more people. Yeah, there is an imbalance of gun ownership in this country. You're right. More people who are gun owners, who are private gun owners, seem to be politically to the right, and that is a problem. My solution to that problem is to disarm those people, and also to demilitarize the police, and to disarm, or at least radically you know de-escalate the level of armament that police departments have. Certainly that just typical police officers that are just out on everyday patrol have. If they're not responding to a particular situation that demands that they be heavily armed, I don't think that police should be armed. Certainly shouldn't be heavily armed, and maybe shouldn't even be armed at all. um, but no, I think the solution. I don't think that disarmament is futile. I don't. We've never even tried it. We're not trying it now. How can you say there's futility in disarmament? We haven't even tried it. Have we ever had a nationwide gun buyback? Have we ever had a consistent, well-funded, well-mounted public service or public awareness campaign to encourage people to turn in their guns, to discourage people from buying guns? Have we ever implemented a nationally, federally funded program to destroy confiscated crime guns once they're no longer used for evidence? I mean, there are all kinds of things that we could do that could put us on the path to disarmament that we just haven't tried at all. We just aren't doing it. So no, that never crossed my mind watching that shit show at the Capitol. I still don't think that is at all a good thing. I do not think that the solution to any of our problems in the United States lies in arming more people. Even if those people are leftists and liberals and progressive people, I do not think introducing more guns into the population is a good thing. I just don't think that. We obviously come at the issue from opposite directions. You look at the imbalance and you say we should arm the leftists. I look at the imbalance and I say we need to do something about the guns that the right wingers have, and to pull those out of circulation, so to speak. So, but no, it has not affected my opinion on that matter at all. I haven't changed my mind about that. Actuarial Lurker says, do you think the January 6th MAGA invaders should be charged with felony murder since there were multiple deaths that arose in the commission of other felonies? What can Biden do to avoid the U.S. devolving into a police state where the new gang rounds up the old without tolerating terrorism? Well, legally, I mean, I don't, if there is a case for charging them for charging all of them, or all of them who were trespassing on the Capitol, or all of them who, if there's a legal case for charging them with felony murder because people died during the course of the other crimes they committed, I'm not. I think that'd be great. I think they should be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law, and that means, if that means that they can be charged with felony murder, then I say charge them with it. But I am not a lawyer. I am not a legal scholar. I don't know how that works. I don't know if there is a valid case to be made as far as that. But if there is, yes, absolutely. I charge them with anything you can charge them with. Prosecute them to the fullest extent of the law. And as for what Biden can do to avoid rounding up the old gang, don't round up the old gang just for the sake of rounding up the old gang. I don't think people should be arrested or prosecuted for being associated with Trump or the Trump administration. I think people who have been investigated and are suspected of having committed crimes should be rounded up, so to speak, and prosecuted, and if convicted, should be punished. But I don't, it's not a matter of, well, the new gang is rounding up the old gang. It's a matter of, the old gang were, a lot of people in the old gang were apparently criminals, and the new gang is going to prosecute the criminals. So it's not rounding up the old gang, it's prosecuting the criminals. That's what they should do. And if they're, and of course, people who are sympathetic to Trump are going to cry bloody murder and are going to say, this is the kind of thing that happens in a banana republic. The new administration is persecuting their political rivals, and they're sending the old regime to prison. This is what happens. And they're going to say that because they're the ones on the receiving end of it. And because they know that they don't have a leg to stand on. They know that many of them did commit criminal acts. Many of them are guilty, or at least certainly look guilty, and are look guilty enough to warrant investigation and prosecution on many of these matters. Of course they're going to say that. Of course they're going to try to make it. They're going to try to do what Trump did during the Mueller investigation. Say, oh, it's totally political. It's a witch hunt. It's not. They're criminals. They're bad people who did bad things, and they should be brought to justice for that. So no, I think if you do that, and Biden and his Justice Department makes it clear, hey, this is what we're doing. This is not about punishing the Trump administration just because they were the Trump administration and they are our political opponents. This has nothing to do with that. This is about the Justice Department doing what it was created to do, and carrying out the laws of the United States. And that includes investigating suspected wrongdoing and prosecuting wrongdoers or suspected wrongdoers when we think it is appropriate. That's what it has to be about, not about the new gang rounding up the old gang. Next question. What an honor. From Queen Elizabeth II. Hi, Steve. I'm a newcomer to your channel and have been intrigued by your various content. Trek Actually, Why Did I Just Watch? The Atheist Read series. That said, I am literally the head of a church. My question is, what originally inspired you to start this channel? The original subject matter that made you decide to record and upload your thoughts? I'm not really comfortable in front of the camera, but unfortunately, I'm contractually obliged to do it once in a while, what with being queen. If you fancy a collaboration for my next Christmas broadcast, give me a call. I will be ringing up Buckingham Palace next year, or later this year, I guess. You can bet on that, Your Majesty. I would love to do the Queen's Christmas message with you next year. The real Queen Elizabeth, who is the person who submitted this question. My channel was originally, the first YouTube video I ever did was, ironically enough, a response video, because I as a rule, I do not do and have never done response videos to other people, to other YouTubers. But I did a response video to a Christian YouTuber who went by the handle Veritas48, and he had posted a video called 5 Questions for Atheists. So I watched it, and it seemed to me as though it was made in good faith. They weren't gotcha questions. They weren't questions being asked to sort of trick atheists into saying something that they're, that undermines atheism, or to start an argument or whatever. It seemed like it was being put out there in a genuine attempt at communication and understanding. And I really appreciated that, because that was back when the sort of quote unquote great debate was really happening on YouTube in atheist and Christian, especially, right wing sort of creationist conservative Christian circles. There was a lot of headbutting and a lot of debating and a lot of performative outrage and a lot of ponage and back and forth, and that was never really my thing. So seeing a Christian make a video that seemed like a genuine attempt at reaching out to atheists, I thought was really cool. So I made my response to that, and I really liked it. I liked making the video. I liked being on camera. I liked talking to the camera. So I decided to make more. And here I am. You can't see the plaque. The shot cuts off the plaque, but my plaque is right here. My 100,000 subscribers plaque. So here we are. Yeah. Thank you, Queen Elizabeth. Orion McMurray, have you seen the old Star Trek photo novels before? They take stills from the original episodes and put in word balloons for what the actors say. Reminded me of your Star Trek TNG comics you did. Are you still doing them? Yes, I haven't done them for a while. And well, because I way back in the day, I did Star Trek photo comics too, with stills from classic Trek. And I did basically the same thing, only a less sophisticated version of the same thing. And then more recently, I've been doing them with action figures, what you can see on the shelf back there behind me. But I think I have a couple finished that I just haven't posted yet. And I have a bunch more written that I just haven't taken the pictures for. I haven't actually gotten around to making yet, but yeah, I'm still doing them in theory. I've kind of slowed down recently, but I really, really love making those photo comics. And I'm definitely going to keep doing them. It's just a matter of finding time to do it amidst all the other stuff that I do. And yes, I have seen the photo novels you're talking about. And also I've seen the more recent ones that John Byrne has done that I think, what does he call them? I think, does he call them? He calls it. It's something like New Voyages or something. It's not New Voyages as a fan series. I don't think it's called New Voyages, but it's something like. But John Byrne has done a series of comics that are just that. The artwork is photoshopped stills from the original Star Trek show, and they're actually really good, and they're a lot of fun, and I've really, really enjoyed them. I think they're done now. I think he's finished doing them. He hasn't done any for a while, but I've read them all, and I really like them a lot. They're really cool. So yeah, definitely. Dean, climbed any good trees lately? Unfortunately, not lately. It's been a couple of months. The weather here has gotten cold, and it just hasn't been very good tree climbing weather. I haven't gotten outside to go for a walk that much lately either. The weather, it's January. It's been really cold, so I have gotten my exercise inside. I have a stationary bike that I ride. I tried to do like push-ups and sit-ups and stuff, although I admit I have been slacking on those recently. I need to get back into the swing of things with that and get back into my exercise routine. But no, unfortunately, I have not climbed any trees lately because it's just been too goddamn cold. David Colby says Biden's incoming inauguration is giving me whiplash. On the one hand, you have insipid, pointless, self-destructive, penny-pinching quibbling about how, 1,400 added to 600 equals 2,000, so technically we're not lying about giving you $2,000 checks. And on the next you have, we're going to use our executive order to kill the Keystone Pipeline. I don't know what to expect. What's your most off-the-wall, ludicrous prediction for the next 100 days? Assassination attempt? Full-scale civil war? Alien invasion? No, my most off-the-wall prediction is that Biden will govern as a fairly progressive New Deal Democrat. That's not really an off the wall prediction. I just think that's what's going to happen. And I think that's what I always expected to happen. I think people who say that, and look, I get it about the 1,400 thing. Like, I would much rather it be 2,000. I would much rather it be $2,000 every month, like for the next 6 months. You know what I mean? Like, I'd rather it be a lot more and a lot more frequently than just another one-time payment. So I'm with you on the 1,400, but I will take the 1,400 if that's what we get, because it's better than nothing. And it's a hell of a lot more than what we probably would have gotten if the Republicans had retained control of the Senate. And certainly if Trump had had won the election and was still the president. So I agree with you that, 1,400 is not 2,000, but it is what it is. And yeah, the Keystone Pipeline, rejoining the Paris Climate Accord. What else did he do as far as executive orders? Rejoining the World Health Organization. Oh, invoking the Defense Production Act to ramp up production of PPE and things like that, which Trump said he was going to do or said he was thinking about doing and then just never did for some reason. Biden did that shit on day one. So, and then he, his social policy. He's talked about. He's already been talking about, as he promised on the campaign trail, pushing for the $15 minimum wage, and and he's changed some federal rules and regulations and some executive branch sort of policies that he has the power as an executive to just do without congressional approval, to increase SNAP benefits and to make it easier for federal workers to collectively bargain. So, I mean, I think he's not going to be as progressive as I would hope he would be, I'm sure. And we are going to have to stay on him and and not just him, but the Democrats in Congress are going to have to push them and, call and write and protest when necessary, show up in person when necessary to peacefully protest, unlike the dipshits who stormed the Capitol. And, we're going to have to do our part as politically active, engaged citizens to make sure that what needs to happen happens. But I think Biden will, generally speaking, govern as a moderate but a left-leaning sort of New Deal, Franklin Roosevelt style Democrat. I think that's what he has always said he was going to do, and I think that's what he's going to try to do. So no, I mean, I don't really have any like off the wall ludicrous predictions. I think he's probably going to be a very acceptable, moderately progressive president, and I wish he was going to be more progressive, but I think he's going to do okay in the next 100 days and hopefully in the next 4 years. Andrew C. Hawkins, how much do you think the Capitol Police participated in the January 6th putsch? It's probable that some of them were in on it, along with a number of representatives and senators, but the vibe I got from the cops that day was one of befuddlement. They know exactly what to do when faced with left-wing protesters, but are confused by right-wing ones. I also resist the idea that the attack was planned out because it had no hope of succeeding. The votes had been counted, the court challenges had been dismissed, and the Electoral College had met. Delaying a formality wasn't going to keep Trump in office. I think there were people who came there that day intending to start trouble. And I think some of them apparently had some very, very dark motives, like the people who showed up with zip ties, people who had posted on social media leading up to that saying that they were looking for particular members of Congress. They were looking for Nancy Pelosi, or after Mike Pence decided that he wasn't going to jail for Donald Trump and he decided not to attempt to do the thing that he's not legally allowed to do anyway. They said, they're looking for Mike Pence. So I don't think that it was that it was planned all that far ahead, or that there was a lot of specific planning. But I do think some people, showed up with an idea to do something really, really bad. And I think some of them were probably Capitol Police. I don't think the Capitol Police as a group, as an institution, did a whole lot in terms of planning it or participating in it. But obviously, some Capitol Police and also apparently some members of Congress were involved. So, I mean, was it widespread? I don't think so. It doesn't look like it was at this point. But I think there was certainly some involvement. Yeah. And again, just as with the rest of the people involved, they should be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. And members of Congress who are found to have enabled it, or are found to have knowingly aided and abetted it, should be expelled from Congress at the very least, and should be criminally prosecuted if that's deemed appropriate. Meg says, hi again. I don't know if you've discussed this before, but I'm curious. Do you have any Star Trek collections or any memorabilia that you're really excited about or proud of? I just recently started collecting Star Trek trading cards, and it makes me really happy, even in this crazy time. I hope you're getting to do something that keeps you happy too, Star Trek related or not. Thank you for all your hard work. Have a great day. Well, thank you, Meg. Um I guess you could say that my my uh my doll collection back here is something. I mean, I didn't start it to collect them. I started it because I needed characters for my comics, but you can see there's a ton of them back there. I mean, it's basically a collection now. And yeah, that's fun. I haven't got any new ones for a long time because I got everybody that I thought I needed or wanted for the comic. So they're just kind of, standing back there waiting for when I need them to shoot a comic. But yeah, they're, I guess you could call them a collection. And I don't know if I'm proud of them, but I like them. I think they're cool. I think they're neat. I think they're nice to have because I can use them to make fun comics. And not other than that, I have a couple of the little ships, the little like die cast miniature ships, and also there's Batman, who is not Star Trek related. But behind Batman, in front of the monitor that I use back there, that's the monitor that I use to shoot Trek actually in front of now. And in front of that is, I have the little Enterprise D and the little Enterprise E and the little Defiant and the little uh, Deep Space Nine station. And so yeah, I like those are cool. I like those too. It's a small collection, but just stuff like that. Nothing really extensive. Nothing valuable. Nothing and nothing all that interesting, except maybe to me and to another Star Trek fan. But yeah, just stuff like that. It's neat. Um, Ahoy Erno, you've seen Gotham too, right? I love that series. It's super fun. I love how they just run with the resurrection gimmick. I love how they develop the Riddler and Penguin and the whole Rogues gallery. But I hate Jim Gordon. Spoiler alert, he murders people. He covers for corrupt cops. On several occasions, he's made deals with several underworld kingpins. When he arrests his ex-girlfriend, he outright refuses to Miranda her. He violently tortures suspects during interrogations, lets other suspects escape. He never holds that billionaire brat and his mentor accountable for any crimes they commit. In pretty much every episode, he's doing things that are currently being protested against, and he's presented as the good cop. He's the hero of the GCPD, the savior of Gotham, upholder of the law. Jim Gordon is a terrible cop. The show glorifies ACAB, and I don't think the writers realize it. Don't get me wrong, I love the show, but damn, it could use some awareness. Thoughts? Yeah, well, I still have not seen the last season of Gotham. After the next to last season, I kind of dropped off of it. I thought, okay, this is good. I I liked parts of it, and there were stretches of it where I thought it found its voice, and it was a really, really fun show. It was the show that you're describing in your question. I think that it was at its best when it really steered into the goofiness and the silliness and the outrageousness and was kind of that show. And when it tried to be grittier or tried to be more of like when it focused more on Gordon and his conflict about, is he a good cop, is he a bad cop, how can you be a good cop in a city as bad as Gotham, like that's all really, really great material that could be used for a terrific show, a terrific Batman show even. But Gotham was not that show. And I think what you're sort of getting at in your question is it presented Gordon in a way that in a more serious show, or in a show that was more aware or took those bits of Gordon's character more seriously, all of that could have worked. All of that could have been handled in a better way. And you would have had a more interesting characterization of Gordon, and you would have had a better show. But Gotham, the version of Gotham that we got on TV was not that show. I think that show wanted to be a zany, goofy, over the top show. And that's why like the Penguin and the Riddler stuff was some of the best stuff, because usually they kind of steered into the skid with those characters and they just said, to hell with this. We're just going to make this goofy and funny and wacky. And that's why those parts of it worked really well. And the Jim Gordon stuff didn't work quite as well. And for me, the Bruce stuff almost hardly ever worked at all. Like the Bruce Wayne stuff was almost always the worst part of that show. I could not have cared less about anything Bruce Wayne did in that show. I thought Alfred was good. Alfred was a really interesting character. But Bruce and Bruce's story for the most part was just snoozeville. I was way more interested in the villains and to a lesser extent Gordon and Bullock. I thought their version of Bullock eventually became a pretty good character too. but yeah, the show, generally speaking, was just a mess. Like, there were parts of it that I really liked, and there were parts of it that just did not work and were boring and awful. And that's why I didn't even bother watching the last season. But yeah, I think you make good points about the way Gordon is depicted, and how the issues that are raised by Gordon's behavior are not explored in any sort of meaningful way. That's for sure. Agent Meister. Hi, Steve. No questions for you this time round. I just want to say how sorry I am for everything that's going on in your life at the moment. I don't know what I can add to all the well wishes that other viewers to your channel have sent your way, except to say that I hope you're looking after yourself. For what it's worth, the adversity and challenges I have faced in my own life has made me a great believer in that old Persian adage, this too shall pass. I hope that doesn't come across as trite. As ever, stay safe, keep up the great work, live long and prosper, and to coin a phrase oft used in my part of the world, may the road rise to meet you, Agent Meister in Ireland. Well, first of all, thank you very, very much for saying that. I will once again reassure everybody that I am fine. I'm okay. As I mentioned, it's been a while now, but yeah, my wife and we're officially divorced now. Like, the papers have been signed. It's been filed with the court. It's all said and done. Like, I'm officially divorced now. And it's an adjustment, and it's sad. And there are things about it that obviously are not great, but I'm fine. Like, you don't have to worry about me. You don't have to, ask about me. I genuinely appreciate the sentiment and the thought and the well wishes and everything from everybody. Like, that really means a lot to me. And I mean, and if anybody feels the need to pass along more encouragement or more well wishes or more whatever, like, I don't want to discourage anybody from doing that. I mean, I'm so grateful for all of it, but I'm really okay. Like, I don't feel like I'm facing adversity and challenges. Things are different. There's a lot of new stuff. There's a lot of things that are not like they were, but overall, on the whole, I'm okay. I'm working. I'm settled in a new place. Things are okay. So thank you all so much for asking about me. But I really appreciate the the sentiment, and as for the road rising to meet me, I appreciate that sentiment as well. I just hope that in rising to meet me, the road doesn't slap me in the face. Next question is from Lisa Garrison, who says, so I spent quarantine doing career training in machine learning. One aspect of that was just spending a lot of time talking to AIs. Before my studies, I thought the point at which we would need to worry about giving civil rights to AIs was when they achieved self-awareness, but I've since learned sentience is much more complicated than that. Just as a sci-fi fan who has seen a lot of stories of the emergence of AI superintelligence, when do you think we should consider a computer program to have become a person who should be treated as such? I think, based on sci-fi, we should err on the side of caution. And if we even get an inkling that an artificially intelligent computer program might be sentient, we should just start treating it like a person right then. Like, I feel like we need to get ahead of it. We can't wait until because honestly, what does it hurt? Like, what does it hurt to just treat a robot like a person if they might be a person? Maybe they're not. Maybe they're not. But maybe they are. So just if you think if you're working with an artificial intelligence and you think that it might be an actual sentient intelligence, just what's it hurt? Treat the computer like a person. Give it the right to vote. What could go wrong? Thank you. And by the way, thank you for the question, Lisa. That's a great question. Here's one from Dana, who says, what will your next solo fanfic be about, and when will you read it to us? If you don't know, that's okay. Today is Tuesday, so you've got plenty of time to figure it out before your live stream on Friday. Please make sure to support your response with specific details and use standard capitalization and punctuation for this assignment. Can you tell that Dana's a teacher? I don't feel like that comes across, but I just, in case anybody doesn't know, Dana is a teacher. It's very subtle. You have to really, really listen for it, but you can hear it if you know what to listen for. The next solo fanfic is I've mentioned it before, I think. It's a Superman one. And as you know, Dana, because we've talked about it off the air, I haven't actually worked on it in I think it's been months now since I actually worked on it, but it's a Superman fanfic, and it's about Superman finding a young person, a teenager who has found herself with superpowers as a result of I think it's like an experiment from LexCorp or something that created this superpowered teenager, and it's sort of Superman finding this person and acting as a little bit of a mentor to her. And also there are flashbacks to when Superman was a kid in Smallville, and he was sort of reckoning with his powers as he grew up and was trying to fit in with other kids. That's the general idea of it. And that's what the next one's going to be about. I unless I come up with an idea for something else that's a lot shorter that I can just write out real quick and just say, screw it, I'll read that. But right now it's that Superman fic. And I have no idea. I have one scene. I have one scene. And I think I have most, if not all of it, plotted out. So I know where I'm going with it generally. But I have one scene finished in it. So it's going to be a while. I don't know when I'm going to finish it. But when I finish it, I will definitely read it on a live stream. Because I reading the fanfic in the past has been a lot of fun and people seem to have enjoyed it. But when I finish it, I'll definitely read it. I just have no idea when that'll be. Probably not for a while. Sorry. Carlisle the Cinephile says, hello, Steve. I recently watched a video from a YouTuber called The Cavernicle about the trend of anti-SJWs and even some alt-right pundits softening their positions and taking a more centrist and sometimes downright progressive stances, and when it is or isn't appropriate to believe that the change is genuine. And it left me feeling conflicted. I want to believe that people can change and become better, but I also don't want to just take their word for it, especially when their previous views have harmed a lot of people. Not to mention, I don't want to speak for any marginalized people. At what point do you think we should say to bigoted people that their heel face turn, I threw in that wrestling reference just for you, has come too late? Also, thank you again for signal boosting my fundraiser. It's really helped. Well, I'm really glad to hear that last part, Carlisle. I'm glad that mentioning your fundraiser on the last episode of Ask Away helped out. Only too happy to do that for you. And it depends on the person. It depends on what they did. It depends on how much of a bastard heel they were. Like there are, I'll tell you, and it depends on the person doing the forgiving. It depends on you as the forgiver, right? For me personally, the worst of the worst, and certainly the ones who attacked me and attacked at the time, my wife, now my ex-wife, and who have attacked other people who I care about and who are friends of mine, they're all dead to me. I don't care what they do. They can turn babyface as much as they want. They're nothing but shit on my shoes, and they always will be. I'm never going to forgive them because there's no excuse for what they did. And even if they asked for my forgiveness, which none of them have, and I don't expect any of them ever will, but even if they did, it wouldn't make a difference. They can all go fuck themselves. They can die mad about it if they think, fuck them, 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 fuck them all forever to hell. I don't care what they do. Fuck them. But you may not feel that way, and that's fine. You may have maybe some more personal distance from it than I have. But for me personally, they can all go fuck themselves forever. But if you have a different standard and you can decide for yourself whether or not they have met that standard, that's up to you. I do think there are certain things that we should ask for if a person who is sort of a former, or someone who claims to be a former anti-SJW wants to prove to us that they have truly reformed and they have renounced their old ways and they want to do better now and to fight the good fight now and to be a babyface. They want to be able to dress in the babyface locker room now, right? Aren't you glad you mentioned that one bit of wrestling terminology? And now I'm just going to run with that for the rest of this answer. I think there are a few things that they need to do. It's about more than just saying the right things and voicing more progressive opinions, because hey, guess what? Anybody can do that. That's the easiest thing in the world. If they're on YouTube and they have a backlog of videos that are like anti-feminist, racist, anti-SJW stuff, I think they need to take down those videos. If they're serious, they need to take down those videos or put them on private or unlist them or do take those videos out of their library, out of their catalog of videos that people see when they go to their channel or that pop up when people search their name on YouTube. Take down those videos, demonetize them, and say, hey, I have the courage of my convictions here. I renounce this. This isn't who I am anymore. I don't want any part of this. Take those videos down or demonetize those videos or unlist those videos. Do something to those videos so that they are no longer a part of your public persona and that you are no longer profiting from them. Do that. Have any of them done that? That would be a big first step. Apologizing, like not just apologizing to individuals that they may have attacked. And for some of them, that will take them the rest of their lives because they've attacked so many fucking people. That's practically all they've done is pick fights with people and attack people and bully people. If they were going to give individual apologies to everybody, that would be the rest of their YouTube career, which I would also be fine with. That's the least that they deserve, is to spend the rest of their YouTube careers groveling to the people that they fucked with. But, maybe just a blanket apology. Just make a video saying, hey, I acknowledge the wrong that I did. I acknowledge the harm that I did. I'm sorry. I will make every effort to be better from now on. Like something like that. Some kind of sincere public apology for their past sins. These are things that I just feel like need to be done before a babyface turn by one of these people can be taken seriously. And again, that's just my opinion too. You may have a different standard, and that's up to you, and that's up to every individual, right? But that's what I would say. That's what I would say. Next question is from John Burns, who says, so what happened to the term half-breed? Yeah, I know back in the 60s it was cool and hip for Kirk to call Spock a half-breed, but nowadays it's gone the way of the honky. I know there's still words being tossed around that would make some of us blush, and honky might have been media sponsored, so it disappearing isn't too surprising. But what about half-breed? Words have power, I agree. But watching the language change makes me question why some words do go away while others remain. In Canada, thanks to SCTV and the Great White North, there was a term hoser that became very popular, but now it's being pushed into the offensive zone, which makes no sense to me. Or maybe it's because there's a feeling that it bestows some form of power on a certain group, shrugs, causing others to want it removed. Anyway, what other words from your childhood do you remember were big that have kind of slipped from the lexicon? Hell, Halfbreed was a song by Cher. I don't have a problem with Halfbreed falling into disuse. I think we have better terms to describe people that fall into that category that are more respectful, that are not as potentially insulting. Half-breed is just kind of a harsh term. If you say so-and-so is a half-breed, I mean, we could call someone mixed race. We can call someone biracial if they're of primarily two different racial parents, or multiracial, multi-ethnic. Like there are words to describe what I think half-breed was usually meant as a disparaging remark toward. So I have no problem with half-breed falling into disuse. And as for words that were big when I was a kid, though, the one that I can think of right now is, and I'm not even going to say the word, but the R word. That was, and unfortunately is still sometimes used to refer to people with cognitive disabilities, or people who are neuroatypical, or who have any number of conditions that cause them to be different neurologically or mentally or cognitively to typical people. And they were called the R word. And that, thankfully, has largely fallen into disuse. I think that's a very cruel word. It's a very unkind word. And we have mostly gotten away from using. There are still some people who haven't gotten the fucking memo yet, and there are still some people who make a point of saying it, you know, because they think they're taking a stand for free speech or whatever, or they just can't be bothered to make a minor adjustment to their vocabulary to spare the feelings of people who didn't do anything wrong. But, you know, for the most part, I think that the R word has fallen into disuse. And again, I'm very, very happy to see that, because I think that was long overdue, and that's a very good thing. But that's the example from a word that when I was a kid, people said all the time, and myself included. We used to say it was just a normal part of your vocabulary, and thankfully it no longer is. And I think that's a good thing. Isaiah Taylor. Hey, Steve, I've been watching various Star Trek, TNG, DS9 episodes dealing with wars, rumors of wars, and the beginnings of both the Klingon Civil War and the Dominion War. I also watched a rather dated documentary about the 1991 to 2003 Yugoslav wars. I did this because of the recent events on January 6th and how I've been hearing from political pundits and communicators on how close the country is towards a civil war and how we are as divided since the Civil War. To be honest, Biden swearing in has, for me, at least, greatly reduced tensions for me. What do you think, Steve? I've always watched Star Trek and other shows for their messaging, not stupid bullshit like the Corbomite maneuver or Captain Archer's dog's name. Ahem, Porthos. I don't think we're close to a civil war. Maybe we are more divided than we have been since the Civil War, but I don't even know about that. I wasn't there at the time, but the impression I get is that things were pretty damn divided in the mid to late 60s when, you know, there was the Vietnam War, there was the height of the Black Civil Rights Movement. The women's movement was getting off the ground and getting underway, and there was a massive conservative backlash to both of those. And also there was a lot of tension and a lot of really, really bitter division over the Vietnam War. So I would tend to think that things were more divided back then than they are now. And that's not to downplay how divided they are now, because obviously we are living in a very, very divisive age right now. And I don't mean to say that we're not, but is it the most divisive since the Civil War? I don't know. Maybe it is, but I would tend to suspect that the mid to late 60s were more divisive. But no, I don't think we're that close to a civil war. I don't think we were ever really that close to a civil war. But I agree with you that Biden's swearing in and Biden's the fact that that there was a peaceful transfer of power, that even with the hostility and the conspiracy theory mongering and the refusal to accept the result of Trump, which we have never really seen in America before, when the outgoing president, who clearly lost, and there was no controversy about that at all, that he clearly lost the election, and he just refused to accept it and kind of left town with his tail between his legs. Like, that's never really happened before. There have been bitter transfers, and I think there have even been instances where the outgoing president did not attend the inauguration of the incoming president, as happened this time. That's not the first time that's happened. But I don't know if there's ever been an instance like this where the outgoing president never, ever, ever conceded and continued to try to undermine the election result, even as he was on his way out the door. I don't know if that's ever happened before. And Biden swearing in did, I think, ease a lot of people's minds, including my own, as far as all of that went, that all of that came to nothing. You know, the institution survived that. The government survived that. And the transfer of power went smoothly as it always has. I think that was reassuring to a lot of us. But no, I don't think we were ever that close to a civil war. No, I don't. Even though we are definitely very, very divided. Carl Roberts, beautifulest one. Hey, Steve, we, multi-ethnic, multi-gender, heterogeneous coalition, flipped Georgia blue, elected rational people to leadership positions, and averted a coup by white supremacists. Yet I find myself encountering voices of folks who seem disheartened by what we did because the elected players on the field don't meet the expectations of a jaded few, in my opinion. Democracy is a never-ending action. There is no tapping out because my favorite person won. No matter how one feels about a politician, once elected, they must continually be held to account for the type of work they produce, just like anyone else providing a service. We've seen what this type of agency yields when we look at what was accomplished in 2018. No individual is perfect or is able to save us from the shadows. That's our job. And from my vantage point, we all created the best opportunity to experience the change we desire by electing the current administration. May I ask what you think? Please stay safe. I agree with you 100%, my friend. I agree with you 100%. I was someone who, and I've said this since the election, and I said it leading up to the election. I wish Joe Biden were more progressive than he is. I wish the Democrats had nominated a more progressive candidate who was not Joe Biden. I didn't vote for Biden in the primary, but once he was the nominee, I was 100% on board with him, and I got and still get very, very impatient with people who are anti-Biden just for the sake of it, or anti-Biden in ways that I don't think are constructive. You're totally right. We need to push. There is no tapping out. Democracy is an action. It's not something that we do every 4 years and then we go home and we wait for the next election, right? We as citizens have a responsibility. We need to hold Joe Biden accountable. We need to hold members of Congress accountable. We need to hold our state representatives and our governors accountable, our local officials. We need to constantly be pushing the representatives of our government to be participating in all kinds of ways, not just voting, but in communicating and going to town halls and writing and calling and protesting if we decide that that's necessary, and doing what we need to do as citizens to make sure that the government does what we need it to do and doesn't do things that are against our values or against our interest. We need to be very, very active in that. And you're totally right. It's our job. The government is a tool of the people, or it should be anyway. It's not always, but ideally, the government is a tool of the people. And we, the people, need to wield that tool, right? So any kind of criticism of Biden or the current administration or the Democrats or whatever that is constructive, that is designed to push them to do the right thing, or is designed to hopefully encourage the party to move further to the left or to do more progressive things or to be bolder, to take bolder, bigger action, I'm all in favor of that. But this sort of grumpy, sullen, pointless, oh, Democrats suck, they're no different than Republicans, Joe Biden is a conservative, all that horse shit that accomplishes nothing, that sounds like sour grapes from the winning side, which is really, really weird to me. It's like, I know that Biden isn't your guy, but he's clearly the more preferable one of the two people who had a shot at winning this time, right? We won. Why is there sour grapes because we won? If you want to talk about things he needs to do, you want to talk about pushing him to the left, holding him accountable, God damn it. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. But just moaning and whining and finding fault with everything he does because he did a progressive thing, but he didn't do something that was 10 times as progressive. Like, I agree. I would love for him to do the 10 times as progressive thing. I think we should continue to push for the 10 times as progressive thing, but that doesn't mean that the thing that he did do is completely worthless, or that we shouldn't celebrate, or that we shouldn't check off that box a little bit and say, hey, that's a good thing that happened. It's not enough. It's not sufficient. It's not everything we wanted it to be or everything we need it to be, but God damn it, it's a step in the right direction. And we should take that as a W. We should take that as a win and then keep pushing for the next thing. But instead of that, a lot of people are just like, oh, Biden sucks. I knew it. I told you he was going to do this. I told you he's not a progressive. I told you he's no different than a Republican. He's a conservative. That accomplishes nothing. And it makes people sound like there's never going to be anything that's going to be fucking good enough for you. You know, because you're not doing anything constructive to try to push for a better result. You're just whining because something good happened, but it wasn't as good as what you think should have happened. And you might be right. You probably are right that it's not as good as what should have happened. But what's pissing and moaning and throwing a tantrum about it going to accomplish? Nothing. So, yeah, I mean, I agree with you. Michael Hainline says, hey, Steve, despite my relief at Trump being banished to the Phantom Zone, I already have so many concerns that I had trouble picking just one to ask about this week. I guess I'll start with Biden's cabinet and other admin picks. Are you concerned at all about them? A lot of Goldman Sachs alumni are in there. I think most missed it because of the whole insurrection thing, but Gina Raimondo was appointed Commerce Secretary. The same Gina Raimondo who, as governor of Rhode Island, was infamous for repeatedly partnering with Goldman Sachs during her political career, much to their benefit and to the benefit of Rhode Islanders, much more to their benefit than to the benefit of Rhode Islanders, cutting $60 million from Medicaid while giving an extra $16 million to insurance companies, stripping abortion coverage by requiring that all insurance providers offer plans that do not cover abortion, and more. Were you aware of this or any of Biden's other ghoulish picks? This is definitely not the progressive direction I was hoping for. I am aware that some of his cabinet picks are not what people hoped for. I am not, honestly, the Goldman Sachs thing, when they say like so-and-so worked for Goldman Sachs, I mean, I would ideally, that would not be an issue, but that is not necessarily a deal breaker for me, given how pervasive that kind of thing has been. It's like when people said, oh, Hillary gave speeches to such and such, it's like, well, okay, maybe I wish she hadn't done that, but it really doesn't mean all that much to me. The things that, and like the things in your question that you just said about Gina Raimondo, the Goldman Sachs thing, I don't give a shit about that. Now, cutting Medicaid benefits, that's worrisome, right? Cutting Medicaid benefits while giving tax breaks or some other kind of benefit to insurance companies, yeah, that bothers me. That's bad. Restricting abortion coverage, like that's a bad thing. That's something that's worth being upset about. The Goldman Sachs thing, it's not that it's not worth being upset about or that it's not something that shouldn't be paid any attention to, but that's not nearly as important to me as the other stuff. So, and hopefully her tenure as Commerce Secretary will not be reflective of those kind of policies. Hopefully, as Commerce Secretary, she's not going to have a whole lot of a chance to affect health coverage or access to abortion. And to the extent that she does, she will not be taking action to restrict the people's ability to get an abortion or attempting to cut Medicaid benefits. And that this is the sort of thing, this is why people say, like Beautiful is one in the last question says, we need to keep an eye on this. If Gina Raimondo turns out to be a terrible Commerce Secretary who is supporting and implementing policies like those that you're describing that she did as governor of Rhode Island, then we need to be on top of that. And if necessary, we need to demand her resignation and demand that somebody else be appointed to that position, somebody who won't be doing that shit. But yeah, I mean, it's something to be aware of. It's something to be concerned about. Absolutely. And I think that is a case of a fair criticism of saying we should be keeping an eye on people that are appointed to important government posts, for sure. Yeah, absolutely. Joe McClory says, over 406,000 deaths in the United States as of writing this question, with 2,043 January 11th, 300 days after the first U.S. death, and the day my father was added to that list. 2 weeks ago, I talked about anger while he was in a bad place. Now that has passed, and I have had some time to process some of that. I have decided to use that anger to help stop the unnecessary deaths and remove from power the people who stood in the way of PPE, relief, and sensible restrictions. I don't ask you what to do. Instead, I ask for your help using your platform and the platforms of your friends so that I can aim my anger to create lists of leaders and businesses that work against those trying to control this pandemic and remove their power. If such a platform exists, point me to it. If it doesn't, I need help from organizers to make it and fund it. In either case, I could use a megaphone. Thank you. People with suggestions for organizations or help to create it, email Joe at pctjoe@outlook.com. And if I personally, I don't know of any organization to point you to, Joe, or of any advice I can give you as far as that goes, except to say good luck. I think you are wanting to do a good thing there. And if there is anything I can do to help, if you need more of a signal boost at any time, please let me know and I will. But yes, anybody watching this, anybody in the chat, anybody watching this in the archived version after the stream is over, if you can help Joe with this at all, please, please, please do as he requests and email him at that email address on the screen right now, pctjoe@outlook.com, and help Joe out with that as much as you can. Because yes, there was, and of course, I think I said this to you on Facebook when you posted about it, but I mean, condolences on the loss of your dad. That's awful. And good on you for wanting to take your grief and your anger and to channel it in a positive direction, and to hold people who contributed to making this pandemic worse than it needed to be accountable for that. So again, pctjoe@outlook.com. If anybody watching can help Joe out with this, I think that would be terrific. Next question is from Jacob Monroe. Hello, Steve. You mentioned in the last Trek, actually, that you were initially excited about the prospect of the Ultimate Warrior's title run and about Rodimus Prime replacing Optimus Prime. My question is, has there ever been a new champion or replacement TV character that you knew immediately wasn't going to go well? Roman Reigns? Roman Reigns like 4 or 5 years ago. I do not watch WWE anymore. I have not watched any of it for over 4 years. So I don't know how Roman's doing now. I am told that they finally turned Roman heel and that he's actually doing a little better now in terms of his character and his performance. Although it probably helps that there aren't fans in the building right now to do the opposite of what they want to do with him. But yeah, I knew Roman wasn't going to work. As far as TV characters, I'm trying to think. I mean, I know I know that there have been replacements on popular shows that have not been well received, but I mean, they were usually on shows that I didn't watch in the first place. So like, I can't, I can't think of it. But no, I can't think of any. But yeah, as far as wrestling, I mean, Roman is a big one. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. That's probably that's the only one that comes to mind. But I'm sure there are other examples of characters replacing, beloved leading characters in shows, and that it was obvious from the get go that it just wasn't going to work, and it didn't. But I can't think of any more right now. General Contact Unit Problem Child says, so the other day, Christy and Kev were doing the happy hour, celebrating the inauguration, and at the end, Kevin jokingly said something to the effect of, this may be the last time in a while you see us having the same opinion on what a U.S. president does, referring to the fact that he's a socialist and she's a moderate liberal. Obviously, he wasn't being totally serious, but it is the case liberals and leftists have had a lot to agree on the last few years, and that's going to change now. I know you're to the left of Christie, but you're still more or less a lib. Are you worried that you might end up falling out with socialist friends you've made over the last 4 years if you disagree with them about what Biden can do? I mean, I'm anticipating you and some non-specific dweeb may be arguing a lot more in future Hangout streams. P.S. My dog turned 3 today, and Contact Unit Problem Child posted a link to a picture of the doggy, and I want to show the doggy to you. There's the doggy that is 3 years old today. Happy birthday, doggy. Happy birthday. Oh, what a great dog. Anyway, thanks for sharing that picture, by the way. So I think there will probably be some more tension, some more conflict between people on the left, between people who are further to the left than people like me or Christie. I anticipate that. I'm not worried about losing friends or falling out with people. I think there may be some tense moments. There certainly will be moments when I lose patience with them and when they lose patience with me. I don't think it'll lead to a big falling out because I don't think that they are the enemy. I still think the right wing is the enemy. I still think just because Trump isn't the president doesn't mean that the threat of the Republican Party and the conservative movement and, the Nazis is gone. There is still a we on the left side of the spectrum, whether we would fall into the category of liberal or we would be leftist or whatever, we still have common enemies and we still have plenty of incentive to be pulling in the same direction. And we still have way more in common than not. So yeah, there will be conflict, there will be arguments, there will be frustration, but hopefully we will still be mostly pulling in the same direction and backing each other up, because I think that's what has to happen for real progress to take place, you know. But yeah, will there be some more conflict? Will there be some more tensions? Yeah, probably. Yeah, probably. But I still don't think that people further to the left than I am are my enemies, even if I do find some of their proposed strategies or tactics to be impractical. You know, I still don't think that they're my enemies or that they are the threat that we should be talking about. It's still the people on the right and what they want to do that are the threat. Speaking of whom, the bullshit ideologies that will remind there are still kids in cages, also known as Some Random Geek. This week, CNN reported that Schumer and and Mitch McConnell are close to a power sharing agreement for the Senate committees, even numbers. And Schumer is looking forward to working with the Republicans. I was fucking pissed when I heard this news. Correct me if I'm wrong. The only way to improve things in our system was for the Dems to win. Vote, vote, vote. Vote blue no matter who. But the only way to get anything done is with the approval of the fascist sympathing party that blocked anything left of hurting homeless people for sport. Do liberals and incrementalists understand my frustration with this system? Do they get it now why I am a revolutionary? Apparently, the only for systemic change to happen is in the system is for the older generations of politicians, Schumer, Pelosi, Biden, and Litch, and their anti-leftist voting base to die off in 40 years, but that is too late for climate change. My friends will forever e-beg just to eat as well. I need to be their sugar parent, I guess. Fuck me. I understand your frustration, but the frustration that people like me have with you is when you say things like, well, you know, you said that the only way to fix things was for the Dems to win, and we still have to work out agreements with the Republicans. Yeah, I agree, that sucks. But that's because we only won 50 seats in the Senate. If we had won more seats in the Senate, we wouldn't have to do that. That's just the way the election happened. I wish the election result had been different. I wish the Democrats had picked up more seats. I really do. But they didn't. So this is the reality of the situation that we have to deal with. It does, and it doesn't say, my reaction to that is not to say, well, we should just chuck the whole system out the window. I think that's juvenile. I think that's a childish response. When you say, oh, we voted for the Democrats and it didn't fix anything. Well, we didn't win as many seats as we wanted to. It sucks, but it happens. That's just what happened. Next time, we need to win more seats. We need to get out the vote more. We need to get we need to do what we can to take down barriers to voting and undo voter suppression if we possibly can. In states where that is an issue, which is a lot of places, we need to do a better job and we need to win more seats next time. That's why, I mean, it's frustrating when the response is, oh, well, see what happens when you vote for the Democrats? They still need to get the approval of the fascists. Well, yeah, because we didn't win enough seats, because the election didn't turn as much in our favor as we hoped it would. That doesn't mean, oh, it's all fucked and we need to have a revolution. Not to me, anyway. That's not how I see it. I think that's impractical. I don't think, again, that's the kind of thing I'm talking about when I say this doesn't help anybody. This doesn't help anybody. And you're saying, like, you know, like sort of like throwing shit at liberals and incrementalists. What is the alternative? What is the alternative to incrementalism? Revolution? You know where I stand on that. Saying we need a revolution to me, is the political equivalent of saying we need magic. We need to cast a magic spell that'll fix everything, because there's no specifics, there's no plan, there's no method in place for how it's going to work, for what's going to happen after what are we going to do? What are we going to do? We're going to overthrow the government, and then what are we going to do? Who's going to overthrow the government? Who's going to fight that fight? And and how are we going to win? And then what are we going to do afterwards? And how is it going to be better than what we have now? And how is that a wiser solution than attempting to better wield the tool that we have now, which is the government, which is representative democracy, as deeply flawed and corrupted and compromised as it is? How is throwing the whole thing out the window with no plan for what to do instead a better idea? And how is an election that didn't turn out quite as well as we hoped it would an indictment of the entire democratic system? I don't get that. I wish the Democrats had more than 50 people, had more than 50 votes in the Senate too. I really do. I wish the Democrats had a filibuster-proof majority in the Senate. I really, really do. But that's not what happened. So my response to that is not to say, oh, fuck it, voting is a waste of time, or not that you didn't say voting is a waste of time, but I don't think that means, we should just chuck the whole thing out the window and have a revolution and start over with something else. I don't think that is at all useful. At all. Velvet Cat 17 with his pitch on the Winter Soldier movie, Captain America, The Different Fight. Okay, this will be interesting. Hydra is not a secretive organization. It's alt-right. Steve is asked by Nick Fury to infiltrate it as a conservative president gets elected. 2 years go by. Steve has trust within and reports to Nick Fury. Steve questions if all the friends he made at Hydra are enemies. They seem to be normal people. Then Nick Fury gets shot, and Steve finds out on a meeting that Hydra is responsible. He keeps his cover until he sees that Hydra now has control over S.H.I.E.L.D. The director is appointed by the president, I guess, yeah. Helicarriers get launched. Steve goes on to destroy them, gets arrested for it. On the trial, Steve is also accused of Nick Fury's murder. Then Nick Fury walks in saying, this man acted on my orders. Steve is saved. We find out that Nick Fury was locked up on the president's orders. S.H.I.E.L.D. is beyond repair and gets disbanded. There are impeachment hearings. It's clear that the president will be out soon. Steve and Nick Fury are standing on the ship's bridge above D.C. The camera pans down. The pro-president mob is storming the Capitol. Nick Fury in voiceover. The damage had already been done. Wow, that's bleak. I mean, it's a neat pitch, like it's. I think there's potential there for what could be a cool Captain America movie. But yeah, it's a little. I mean, I guess I don't know. Maybe it should be bleak. We live in bleak times. But yeah, I dig that. And finally, last question from Eric Allen, who says, "All right, Steve. I've always hated Tom Paris in Voyager, but was always unsure why until very recently when I discovered he's really Nicholas Locarno, who got one of his fellow cadets killed at the Academy. No, really, having just recently rewatched that episode for the first time in decades, I didn't know it was the same actor playing Tom Paris, but yeah, I fucking hated Locarno. Still do. Anyway, any characters you hate merely because the actor playing them played a different character earlier that you just can't stand? That's a great question, and I wish I had a better answer. No, not really. I did. It's not quite what you're talking about, but I carried a grudge against George Clooney for a long time for Batman and Robin. And also, here's the other thing. I carried a grudge against Clooney for two reasons. First was he was Batman in Batman and Robin. And second was he was the star of ER. And I was always a Chicago Hope guy. Remember people who are old enough to remember in the 90s when ER started? And ER was like the biggest show in the world pretty much right away. Like it was a massive hit. But on CBS at the same time as ER, there was this other hospital drama called Chicago Hope starring Mandy Patinkin that I thought was just way better. Was a great show. And it was written by David E. Kelly, who also did Picket Fences and went on to do like The Practice and Boston Legal. And is just a terrific TV writer. And, so I loved Chicago Hope and I thought ER was the shits. So I had a grudge, but ER was way more successful. So I had a grudge against Clooney for that and for Batman and Robin. But eventually I grew up. I matured. I saw Three Kings, which Clooney was in, and which is an awesome movie, and Clooney is great in it. And I realized that Clooney as a person is kind of a good dude. And I gradually sort of let go of my bitterness and my bias against him because he had played roles that I, that I didn't like or that I held against him. So it's not quite the same thing you're talking about, but it's similar. So I think the Clooney thing is probably the closest I can come to it. But yeah, and yeah, I think I don't know if it's ever been officially confirmed, but it's long been assumed that the original plan was that Robert Duncan McNeil's character in Voyager was going to be Nick Locarno. And then they decided to make him a new character because they were afraid they would have to pay royalties to the writer who wrote that TNG episode that created Locarno. So, hey, great. They screwed over a writer and they created a new character. But yeah, so you may have really hated him if that had gone through, if he had turned out to actually literally be Nick Locarno and not just a suspiciously similar character played by the same actor. Yeah. So anyway, that's it for the patron questions. Thank you all so much for being patrons and for submitting your awesome questions. And now I will turn to the live chat, and we will spend the rest of the show hanging out and talking in the live chat, and a good time will be had by all. What do you say? So let's see. Three Kings, yes, Three Kings is the one with Ice Cube. Three Kings is oh, what a great movie. A couple of super chats here. First, here's one from John Burns who says Yugoslavia was torn apart at first by large groups of men running towards one another with fists and pieces of wood and bricks. This wasn't protest. Okay. Another one from John Burns. I think Michael Ironside being so cool in the movie Scanners made me like the baddies. That or Shakespeare with Richard III. Yeah, I mean, there are a couple of Shakespeare plays where you're at least encouraged to take a more complex view of the bad guys than you might otherwise be. Oh, beautifulest one, my famous pen. It's right here. You can't see it because I'm wearing an overshirt, but it's still in my collar. I still got my pen. Geralta Trekkie says Batman and Robin is not that bad of a movie, but it's an easy target to pick. But why are people so keen on hating Batman and Robin but praising the Dark Knight trilogy? And then Dana responds with, not that bad of a movie. I'll say this about Batman and Robin. It's not as bad of a movie now watching it at age 40 as it was when I watched it at age 17. I don't hate it. I don't think it's like the worst movie ever made. I can watch it and enjoy it on a certain level as like a so bad it's good kind of movie, but it's not a good movie. Like, it's just not a good movie at all. It's a really, really bad movie. It just now I can watch it and see it in as bad in a fun way, but it's not a good movie. And the reason why people talk shit about Batman and Robin, but they don't talk as much shit about the Dark Knight trilogy, is because most of us think the Dark Knight trilogy was pretty fucking good. Especially the Dark Knight. I still have mixed feelings about Batman Begins. I still think Batman Begins is like one of the most overrated superhero movies of the last 20 years. I don't think it's terrible, but I don't think it's nearly as good as a lot of its more ardent fans thought it was. But I think the Dark Knight is great. Like, the Dark Knight is fantastic. By far the best Batman movie ever made. And Dark Knight Rises, I think, is pretty good too. Dark Knight Rises has its detractors. Of the three Nolan films, I think Dark Knight Rises is by far the one with the most detractors. But I think Dark Knight Rises is pretty good too. It's way too long. And it has some problems, but it's not like a terrible movie. I enjoy the Dark Knight Rises too. So anyway, super chat from Misha Sumra. Thank you very much. He says, ooh, who's the better bad guy character actor? Clancy Brown, Michael Ironside, or Ronnie Cox? Oh, that's like Murderer's Row. Oh, man. I would go Ronnie Cox, I think. We can people in the chat can throw in their own opinions, but of the three, it's close. I would go Ronnie Cox. Super chat from Vovacat17. I will throw in some super chats with the Nick Fury speech from the end of the pitch that I've written. Just read them in succession, will you? Okay, since you're literally paying me to do that. Stark voted for him, right? Thought it was good for business or something. Now he swore to me he wouldn't do it again, and he's no idiot. But still, 2 years and everyone in S.H.I.E.L.D. is one of them. I can't trust nobody of my own people, and I gave them that weapon. And that's all so far. um, let me see. Ultra Trekkie says, fanfic question number 2. How much of the writing process is you plotting and how much is making stuff up as you go along? And why should one plot if one has a greater plot in mind? Well, I mean, it's a, hang on, let me get back to that. I will read Vovacat's speech. This is part 3. Now it all has to go. Shield, my job, even the Connie. Never told anyone I had a pet name for the ship. Oh, he has a pet name for the ship. Anyway, Geralta Trekkie, you don't have to plot. Like you, whatever your process is fine. Like you don't have to plot it out ahead of time. I like to plot things out in terms of scenes, and then usually within a given scene, I am kind of making stuff up as I go along. Like I don't plot out every single thing that's going to happen in a scene. I enter a scene with a general idea of what I want to happen and what I need to accomplish in that scene. And then it just kind of goes where it goes. And hopefully it ends up where it needs to end up. But in terms of like the larger arc of the story, I find I work better if I at least plot that out, sort of scene by scene. Or at least plot out like the important scenes where the story turns. But you don't have to do it that way. You can do it another way if you want. More from the Nick Fury speech. She's a fine one, but too big of a risk with those people around. Camera pans down and we see the mob. Nick Fury voices voiceover. Yeah, the ship has to go. We used her to defeat the aliens, and fighting aliens was easy. This one is hard. We removed the president, but it's far from over. You don't punch through those people with a shield, otherwise you're just like them. Hydra's in their minds now, and it's here to stay. The damage is already done. Not bad. Not bad. I can hear Samuel L. Jackson saying that. Oh, Jason's here. Hi, Jason. Oh my God. Jason says, this is great. They're making a MacGyver movie, but it stars Kevin Spacey and is directed by Zack Snyder. And MacGyver uses a gun. Who do you kill first? Zack Snyder. I kill Zack Snyder first because MacGyver using a gun was his fucking idea, right? So if that movie happened, Zack Snyder's going first because that shit was his idea. And then Kevin Spacey, just for being Kevin Spacey, just on general principle, he goes second, but Snyder goes first because he has shit to answer for. And I mean, obviously, so does Kevin Spacey. 255 AD says, still so confident you're not going to end up falling out with your socialist friends over Biden. You answered my question and immediately jumped on Geek. Yeah. Yeah. And I saw you earlier said we didn't plan it that way. I don't know. Did we fall out over that? I've yelled at Geek about that shit before. Carlisle the Cinephile, did you see my pitch for a Riker-led first contact that I made in the comments of your last Trek Actually video? If so, thoughts? I saw that you made the comment, but I didn't read all of it. I think I'm probably going to, it was pretty long, if I remember. If I can, I'm going to try to grab parts of it and maybe incorporate it into my next comment response video. So I don't have like specific thoughts on it right now. But I saw that you left a comment, yeah. Let me see. Deralta Trekkie says, concerning the latest Trek Actually video, should Janeway have died in Equinox Part 1? Or should she have died during the Hirogen attack in Season 4 and stayed dead? How would the show change? With Captain Chakotay? I think it would have been a lot less interesting. Even more, I mean, Voyager, I don't think Voyager was that interesting of a show to begin with, but with Captain Chakotay, all due respect to Robert Beltran, who did the best he could with what he was given, I think without Janeway as the captain and assuming Chakotay would have been the one to take over as commander of the ship, I think the show would have been even less interesting than it already was. Oh, Alta Trekkie, this is a good one. You know I'm not a wrestling fan. I only know about the Hulk Hogan finger poke of doom. What should I know about wrestling? Well, the most important thing you should know about wrestling is that you don't have to know anything about it. You don't have to be a fan of it if you don't want to be. But if I were going to give you like a starter kit for pro wrestling, and it was going to focus on like North American pro wrestling, which is what I'm most familiar with, um, I think you should see some matches from WrestleMania 3. I think you should see Macho Man versus Ricky Steamboat. I think you should see Hogan versus Andre just for its historical value. It's not that great of a match, but just as for historical value, you should see that. I think you should see the three awesome matches, arguably three of the greatest matches ever that Ric Flair and Ricky Steamboat had against each other in 1989. I think you should see from I think it's from Starrcade '86. You should see the I Quit match in the steel cage between Tully Blanchard and Magnum TA. I think you should see at least one of the Rock and Roll Express versus Midnight Express tag team matches from the '80s. You should probably see maybe the Roddy Piper Greg Valentine dog collar match from the first Starrcade, and let me see, maybe Flair versus Dusty from Starrcade '85. Bret Hart versus Shawn Michaels from Survivor Series '97 is a good one, again for historical value, and also it's a pretty good match up until the finish. And maybe the 1992 Royal Rumble is a big one you should watch. Um, yeah, I don't know. Those are the big ones that from when I was growing up. Like if as far as like important matches that were significant to me and sort of shaped my fandom, maybe Sting winning his first world title from Ric Flair in 1990, Ultimate Warrior winning the title from Hogan in 1990. Those were big moments too. But yeah, they're historical matches that either were really really great matches or were really really influential or successful or historic in terms of the direction that the business went as a result of them. Those are some things off the top of my head that I think you would that if you wanted to become a fan of specifically North American pro wrestling that you would probably want to watch. Um, Super chat from John Burns, who says John Lovitz replacing Phil Hartman was harsh. Also, Hank Aaron, Mira Furlan have died. Any thoughts? Yes, thank you for reminding me, John. Mira Furlan is a shame because yeah, she was Delenn in Babylon 5, and that's I mean, and she was only 65 years old, which is terrible. But yeah, Hank Aaron really kind of hit me. I mean, and Hank Aaron was 86, but I mean, God, that's Hank Aaron. That's the home run king. You know what I mean? Like that's that's a little bit of a stiff shot there. And I mean, he had a good life and he lived a long time and you know, it was his time to go, I guess. But I mean, yeah, Hank Aaron dying is kind of a bummer because I mean, he was Hank Aaron. He was, you know, one of the greatest baseball players, one of the greatest athletes in the history of professional sports, certainly in this country. And I mean, he was a giant. He was a giant. And and really just such a dignified, noble, admirable guy, put up with so much abuse and horseshit in the 70s, especially in 73 and 74 when he was really closing in on Ruth's all-time home run record, the racism, the violence, the threats of violence that he had to put up with for being a black guy who was going to hit more home runs than a white guy. Like that was his crime. And he did it, and he did it with dignity and class and courage and set an example for people that still stands to this day, whether you're an athlete or not, whatever color you might happen to be. You can look up to Hank Aaron and admire Hank Aaron, not just for his athletic accomplishments, which are incredibly impressive, but for his character. And yeah, Hank Aaron passing is tough. I mean, he was a legend for sure. Radical Bacon says, when will we see me and Jason hug? Whenever we're in the same room. I'm sure if one of these days I'm going to make it out to California and see Jason. And if that ever happens and when it happens, I'm sure there will at least be like a selfie or something, or a video or something. We will share the friendship. We will share the love. I'm sure. Yeah, it will happen one day. It will happen one day. Hudson says, any opinion on Scorsese films? I think Martin Scorsese is a brilliant director. I think Goodfellas and Raging Bull and The Last Temptation of Christ specifically are some of the greatest movies I've ever seen. I think King of Comedy is brilliant. I think The Departed was really good. I mean, of course, The Departed was the one that finally won Best Picture, and it's not near as good as his greatest work, but it's still a really, really goddamn good movie. I thought The Irishman was way, 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 way too long, and I thought The Irishman had really, really, really nice parts to it, but as a whole, I just didn't really like it because it was just so goddamn long. Absolutely no reason for the movie to be that. Could have been a 2-hour movie and it would have been great, but it was like a 4-hour movie. It was fucking ridiculous. But yeah, I think Scorsese is a genius. Like Scorsese is a genius. Like I said, Raging Bull and Goodfellas particularly, and I would also throw in Last Temptation because I've always been a big fan of that. 3 of my very, very favorite films. Dana asks, did Ensign Johnson ever actually care about Lenore? Yes, I think Ensign Johnson did and does care about Lenore very much. I think he genuinely cared about her. It's tough to tell with him because of the way his character is, that I play him as a very sort of superficial guy. And because I have a tendency as a performer to go for the joke, that makes him seem even more superficial and even more inconsistent as a character. So it's hard to tell, but me as the actor, as the person who creates him, yes, I think he does genuinely care about Lenore. I think he does. Yes. Super chat from John Burns. Thank you again, my friend. Says, I expected a backlash to Aaron because Roger Maris, who was a Yankee and got 61 home runs, got death threats for breaking a single season. Yeah, that's true. Baseball fans take that shit way too seriously. Robert Mills says, first thing I did after waking up from my car wreck, I argued with my nurses about ER being better than Chicago Hope. Also, isn't Steve Johnson a skeeve using his power to hit on Lenore? I think he's kind of a skeeve in a lot of ways, unfortunately. Jacob Monroe, was Dusty Rhodes the GOAT? Oh, man. He was up there. I don't know if I would say Dusty was the greatest of all time, but he's way up there. I mean, Dusty was maybe the best promo ever. And could be, at certain times, was a great creative talent, was a great booker. Not everything Dusty did as booker was good, but he had some really, really great ideas and was really influential. And as a wrestler, he could have a good match. And God, he knew how to work a crowd. My God, he knew how to get the crowd on his side. Even if you watch a Dusty match and you want to be like kind of like a stickler for work rate and be like, oh, it's not a good match because of this, and this. I mean, he was a great worker in the sense that he knew how to get the crowd on his side and to get the people into the match, which is the most important job of any wrestler. And Dusty was one of the greatest of all time at that. So I don't know if I would say he was the greatest, but he's way, way up there. He's way, way up there. Some Geek says, when should the due date be for Dana's assignment for the next fanfic? The end of February? If it's the end of February, I'm going to have to turn it in late. I don't think the end of February is happening. Lisa Garrison says, did you ever see Real Steel? And do you think anybody could make a more faithful adaptation of Rock'em Sock'em Robots? No, I didn't see it, but I was talking to Dana about it like 2 days ago or yesterday. When was it when we were talking about Hugh Jackman? Was it 2 days ago? We were talking about Hugh Jackman and how I thought Hugh Jackman should be like an even bigger star than he is because he's a triple threat, right? But he's not, and he is a huge star, but he's not like Brad Pitt, George Clooney, like Tom Hanks level star. And I said one of the reasons was, he had to go and make his Rock'em Sock'em Robot movies. I was thinking about that movie the other day. I never saw it, but it was on my mind. Robert says best promo cutter in wrestling of all time, probably Jake the Snake. Right now, I would say either John Moxley or Eddie Kingston, probably Eddie Kingston. Yeah, Dana's like, it's my deadline, so I need to get working. Carrie G asks, if the characters from Lower Decks were translated into one of the live action treks, would they lose their comedy factor? Not necessarily, but I mean, it would have to be adapted. I think it would have to be different. A lot of the humor from Lower Decks comes from sort of the manic timing of a lot of the gags, and I think that wouldn't come across as well in live action. I think you would have to find a different way to make those characters funny. It would have to be more derived from their personalities and their interactions with each other, and not so much, sort of visual gags and timing and sort of wackiness and cartoony stuff. But I think I don't think it would ruin them necessarily. You just have to find a different way into it. Let me see. Some Random Geek. No, sadly, I have not read any good books lately. Actually, I'm currently reading Under the Jolly Roger, which is the third book in the Jackie Faber, the Bloody Jack series, because Dana's got me into that, but I'm not. Other than that, and I'm reading that like just a little bit at a time. But other than that, I'm not. Yeah, I haven't. Oh, no, I just unfortunately I don't have a lot of time to read. Geraldo Trekkie says, gotta say, I will never understand how national pride works. How can one be proud of a part of a country? Oh, Anacostia, the most beautiful river. Nah, or on persons of the past. I understand it. I mean, a lot of it is just, it's what you're used to. It's what you grew up around. You have a love for the area that you grew up with, or whatever. Oh, Dana, yes, thank you. I'm reading The Dispossessed. Some Random Geek. But yeah, it's what you grew up with, but it doesn't mean it makes sense. Like, it doesn't mean it's rational, but I understand it. Super chat from Michael Handeline. Thank you very much, my friend. Trying to figure out what fantasy you do like based on the last Ask stream. Do you like dark mysteries that have supernatural elements in them? Supernatural is fine. Yeah, like I don't have a problem with with stories that have the supernatural. When I say I don't like fantasy, I'm usually talking about what would be described as high fantasy, like swords and sorcerers, knights, dragons, magic, elves and orcs and shit. Like, that's the kind that I could not care less about that. Stuff that takes place in a quasi medieval setting, with lots of sort of high-minded, elevated attempts at aping Shakespeare with the dialogue, and just that kind of stuff just puts me right the fuck to sleep. Supernatural stuff just in general, fantasy elements just in general, like the fantastic, that I'm on board. If it's a good story, I'm on board with a lot of that. It's just the high fantasy stuff, just I could not possibly care less. And a super chat from Eric Allen. Any advice on using OBS? I'm having trouble with many sites and software recognizing it, like Facebook Live, Roll20, and Discord. I do not usually use OBS. I primarily use XSplit, so I don't have a lot of advice on OBS. And XSplit, for the most part, works pretty good. There have been a few times recently on a couple of the streams that Dana and I do, where for whatever reason XSplit has not wanted to work, and I had to go to OBS like sort of as a last minute fix to just to do the show that night, and it works fine. But I don't have like a really extensive knowledge of it because it's not my primary software. I'm using XSplit to stream this right now. But if I knew, I would tell you. Radical Bacon, yeah, but I've never read any Jim Butcher, so I don't know if I'm a Jim Butcher sort of dude or not. But if what I described sounds more like Jim Butcher, then yeah, I guess so. Robert Mills, see, but no, high fantasy is a specific genre. Like saying that sci-fi is modern high fantasy, no, it's not. Like high fantasy is a specific genre with specific tropes that I'm just bored by, that I just don't dig. you know. Um, Orange Man says, "What service do you use to watch Star Trek, or do you just have a lot of DVDs?" I I usually watch it on Netflix. I do have some DVDs. Like I have the DVD. I have the box set of Next Generation, and I have all of the episodes of classic Trek and of the animated series on DVD. But that's it. Like that's the extent of my Star Trek of my Star. And I have all the movies. I have all the movies on DVD or Blu-ray. But for watching the TV shows, I uh, I usually watch it on Netflix. And for the movies are sort of scattered. The movies, like some of the movies are on CBS All Access, some of the movies are on Amazon Prime. It just depends on where the movies are. If I want to watch them streaming, but I mean, I have them on DVD and Blu-ray, so I just watch them that way. Um, John Burns says, "Did you actually see the Piper's Pit that included Andre challenging Hogan for the belt on the way to WrestleMania 3, including Jesse Ventura?" No, I did not. I did not. I've seen it since, of course, but I did not see it at the time because I was not yet a fan. I did not actually become a wrestling fan until the following year. And actually the segment that made me a wrestling fan was also an Andre Hogan segment, but it was during the build up for WrestleMania 4, when they did an angle on Saturday night's main event where Andre choked Hogan out. Like he choked him out and put him unconscious. And I saw that on Saturday night's main event. And then the Monday morning at school, I saw some of my friends talking about it, and I realized that they were wrestling fans. And I went over and kind of got into the conversation with them, and that sort of set me on the path of being a wrestling fan. But no, so I didn't see the build up to WrestleMania 3 because I was not a fan yet, but I did see the build up to WrestleMania 4 between Hogan and Andre, and that's what made me a fan. Vovacat Super Chat says, "Do any of you know any good books on technologically advanced people just destroying and ruining high fantasy settings with their technology?" um, Random Geek, what if the orcs and elves are in space? Are they called orcs and elves? Because you're going to lose me. Now, if they're called Klingons and Vulcans, then you might have something there. But if you call them orcs and elves, you're going to lose me. I'm going to be like, oh, Jesus. Yes, Dane, I know Klingons and Vulcans. I know Klingons are way more interesting. First, okay, here's the thing, right? I'm like, I like Star Trek. I don't have a problem with Klingons or Vulcans or any of the other particular aliens, but like, that's not what brings me there. You know what I mean? Like, I like the Klingon. The most interesting thing about Klingons to me is as an antagonist for Captain Kirk. Like, I think Klingons versus Kirk is like classic Star Trek. Okay. But other than that, and I like Worf. Worf is a great character, and I like Gowron. Gowron is like, there are particular characters who are Klingons that I like, but like just Klingons in general and sort of the world building that they've done around Klingons and Klingon culture and the Klingon home world and all that stuff. I could not give less of a shit about any of that. I don't care. Some of it's well done. and it has added to the overall sort of franchise. But I don't. That's not why I watch Star Trek. I don't give a shit. I don't give a shit about Vulcans and Vulcan history and when did they become logical and what are the underpinnings of their philosophy. I don't give a shit. I don't care. So while I do like Star Trek, it's not the space orcs and the space elves that, compel my interest. It's other stuff. John Burns super chat. If you prick a Klingon, does he not bleed? You have not read Shakespeare until you have read him in the original Klingon. General Chang, another Klingon character that I absolutely love. What Lighthouseian said, Dana is correct. Isn't she always? Not always. Not always, but often. 255 AD says in the late 60s, the American economy was doing incredible and LBJ was actually doing stuff to help people. That might be why there was no civil war. Yeah, maybe. And hopefully Biden will do the same thing. I would love for Biden to be an LBJ type president who actually uses the government to help people. That would be great. That would be great. Carrie G. Dana is the correctest. Robert Mills says, I don't remember if you commented on whether Kirk and the Enterprise are genocidal criminals by destroying so many civilizations and never going back. I never characterized him as genocidal, but I do think it's one of my favorite sort of accidental tropes of classic Star Trek, how frequently Kirk swoops in, finds a society with some kind of problem, fixes the problem by actually doing something that could wind up being way, way worse than the problem originally was. And then is like, bye, good luck. And we never see them again because of the nature of episodic television where they never follow up on it. So I never said he was genocidal, but I have noticed, and I take some sort of ironic enjoyment from that part of classic Star Trek. And to an extent, Next Generation as well, because there was some of that in Next Generation as well. Although Captain Picard was not nearly as reckless as Captain Kirk. John Burns has a super chat. I don't give a darn. Oh, that's our shortstop. Third base. Alta Trekkie says, from one fanfic author to another, I'm on page 363 and my word count is roughly around 72,000. Question, would it be too abrupt if I ended the story in the next 10,000 words? That's up to you. That's up to you as the writer. Can you end it in a satisfactory way in the next 10,000 words, do you think? Then it'll be fine. If you need more than 10,000 more words to do the story justice and to finish it, then no, you can't. It would be too abrupt. I mean, it's completely up to you as the writer. And you're welcome for that totally useless answer. Some random geek says, you like Shakespeare, don't you? Yeah, I like Shakespeare. John Burns with another super chat says, Kirk's like J.J. Abrams. Look what he did to Star Trek. Yeah, he made 2 very, very entertaining movies and produced another one. Look what J.J. Abrams did to Star Trek. He made 2 really, really good, financially successful movies and then produced another one that was actually probably the best of the 3. Yeah. Look what J.J. did to Star Trek. He introduced it to a whole new audience and totally revitalized it. Yeah. Susie M says, hi, Steve. I hope you're well. We have an 8 p.m. curfew, and one of the few reasons for going out is to walk the dog. So can Stuffy come and stay with me for a while? I don't think Stuffy's going to stay here, but that's very sweet of you. That's very sweet of you to ask. Would you like to say hi to Stuffy? I think I can. Stuffy's probably on his laptop in the living room. I can see if I can get him to say hi. Stuffy, I'm gonna put you on. Just say hi to somebody, okay? Say hi to Susie. Okay, let me see if he's on. I wasn't expecting this, but okay. So Hi. Hi everybody. I was watching the stream, but I didn't expect to be on it, so I guess this is fine. This is fine. It's nice. Hi Susie. It's very nice of you to say that and to say that you want me to come stay with you. I can't do that right now. I'm going to stay here with Steve, but I really really appreciate the nice things you said, and it's nice to meet you. And that's that's all I have to say right now. So we're gonna throw it back to Steve. Back to you, Steve. Back to you, Steve. Okay. I just wanted to leave him hanging a little bit. Thanks, Stuffy. Dana, yes, that is the chair. That is Stuffy's chair. Yes, that is Stuffy in his chair, watching this stream on his laptop right now. Everybody loves Stuffy. Everybody loves Stuffy, you know? I mean, he's cool and all, don't get me wrong, but it's a little much. Hey, Steve, is Dr. Julian Bashir attractive? I'll take my answer off the air. Why wait? Of course he is. Yes, of course he is. He's a good looking dude. And eventually he becomes not quite as annoying of a character. So, yeah. You're welcome, Susie. I'm sure it was Stuffy's great pleasure to come on and say hi to you. Dana says, "Am I jealous of the love that Stuffy gets?" No, I don't. I think Stuffy deserves it. I'm not jealous of the love Stuffy. I love Stuffy too. Who doesn't love Stuffy? I was just playing a second ago when I was like, "Oh, Stuffy." I was just a hilarious joke I was making that I didn't mean. Oh. So. Radical Bacon, who got the checkerboard lamp? That was Ashley's lamp. That was Ashley's lamp. Ashley has the checkerboard lamp. Carrie asks, why did Alexander Siddig change his name? I don't know exactly. I think he changed it just for the sake of clarity. I mean, his name, his originally credited name was, I think, his birth name, which was Siddig El Fadil, and he changed it, I think, in season 3 or season 4 to Alexander Siddig. I think it was just he changed it because he just felt it would be easier for his career if it was Alexander Siddig instead of Siddig El Fadil, and that's a shame. Like, that's unfortunate that he felt the need to do, because Siddig El Fadil is a great name, you know. But, you know, yeah, he changed it for that reason, I think. That was the reason I heard at the time. Secular Scholar says, what's happening with the Huskies? The Huskies will still be represented, and we will still hear about Huskies and the Husky Society in the new show. Millicent will no longer be on the show, but there will still be references to, and there will still be we'll still check in, and we'll hear about Huskies. Yeah, Huskies are not leaving the show. Just Millicent will unfortunately no longer be on the show, but there will still be Huskies, and there will still be some Husky stuff in the show for sure. Queer Pro Black asks, and we'll make this the last question because we're getting close to. We've been going for almost 2 hours, and I'm just gonna wrap this up soon. But anyway, Queer Pro Black says, question: do you feel hopeful for an America with less white supremacists and actual progressive policies with this new administration? Yes, I do. Yes, I do. As I said earlier, I mean, things could be better. We could have a more progressive president. We could have a more progressive Congress. We could have a larger majority of Democrats in Congress. Like, things could be a lot better than they are. But yes, I am hopeful. I think Biden will be a good president. I think Biden will, on balance, be a progressive president, not as progressive as we would hope, maybe, not as progressive as other candidates might have been, but I think on balance, he will be a progressive president, and I think he will be a good president. And I am hopeful. Is it guaranteed? No. Will we have to do our part as citizens and hold them accountable and push them to do what we need them to do? Absolutely. But I am hopeful. I am hopeful for sure. Okay, super chat from John Burns, and then that's it. There are people who are upset with charges filed against the insurgents, but according to Legal Eagle, there's more coming and they're big. Well, I hope so. And then super chat also from Clayton Berg, who just says thanks. Well, you're welcome, and thank you very much for your super chat. I really appreciate that. Okay, now before we wrap up, I want to remind everybody about, thank you, John Gingers, for the super chat. Just want to leave the stream with love for everyone. Thank you very much. First, I want to remind everybody about the charity links in the description of the video. Some random geek is kind enough to maintain this document that is a list of charity links, of fundraisers and PayPal links and such for folks who are friends of ours who need a helping hand, who are running into some financial trouble and need some help and need a hand up. And so if you can please click that link in the description and check out the charity links and help some of our friends out if you can, if you are in a position to contribute, please do. I would greatly appreciate it. And so would they, and so would all of us, I'm sure. Also, I want to remind you, if you dig this YouTube thing that I do and you want to help me continue to do it, you can become a patron of this channel at patreon.com/Steve Shives. If you contribute any amount of money to my Patreon on a monthly basis, you get to ask questions ahead of time for Ask Away. That is one of the perks of being a patron. And if you pledge $5 a month or more, you also get a shout out at the end of a Trek Actually video. But pledges of any amount are incredibly appreciated. I could not do this without my patrons. Thank you all so much, all of you who are patrons of mine, however long you have been, however much you're pledging. I couldn't do this without you. I am so appreciative of you. Patreon.com/Steve Shives if you want to become a patron of this channel and help me continue to do this YouTube thing. And also, don't forget that in addition to YouTube, I co-host a couple of podcasts that are part of the Let Me Listen family of podcasts. And they are Late Seating, the movie review podcast, which I co-host with Jason Harding. And our most recent episode of that went up last week. And also the Ensign's Log, which had a new episode go up this week, which is the Star Trek themed comedy podcast that I co-host with Jason, and now also with the brilliant and wonderful Dana Cole. And don't get jealous, Jason, because you're brilliant and wonderful too. And also you do all the work. So, there you go, right? And it's your show, you created it, so but yeah, the Ensign's Log is a Star Trek themed comedy podcast that we've had so much fun doing. We are about this weekend, we are going to record the second to last episode of season 3 of the Ensign's Log. And we're all really super excited about it. And Carrie G is right. Dana is the best part. No offense to myself or Jason, but Dana has been absolutely fucking killing it on the Ensign's Log since she joined. She's really added something special to the show. And yeah, so you can check out the Ensign's Log, you can check out Late Seating, you can check out all of the Let Me Listen podcasts by going to that address right there on the screen, letmelistenpodcast.com. It's also linked in the description. Listen to Late Seating and the Ensign's Log and all of the wonderful Let Me Listen podcasts. Just do as you're told. Just do it, okay? Just listen to the podcasts. Jesus, God. Anyway, and Carrie, no offense taken, believe me. Believe me, you do not. One thing you do not have to sell me on ever is how great Dana is. So anyway, that's it, everybody. I'm going to wrap this up. Have a great weekend. I hope you are staying safe and healthy wherever you are. I will be back on Monday for another edition of the conversation stream. And I'll be back on Wednesday with Dana for another Trek Reluctantly, where we'll be watching the one and only Q episode of Deep Space Nine. And and my guest on Monday for the conversation stream, I mentioned it previously. I mentioned it on Wednesday, but I'll mention it again since I just hyped it. It will be Juam Navarro Rivera, who hopefully is familiar to some of you for his work in the secular movement. We're going to have a good talk on Monday night. Wednesday is another Trek Reluctantly, and then a week from tonight, next Friday, is the next chapter of Dana and I's book club, our book discussion, where we're continuing to read Ursula Le Guin's The Dispossessed. So that's coming up. That's what's coming up over the next week on this channel. Again, thanks to everybody for watching. Take care of yourselves. Have a good weekend. And I'll see you next time. Bye, everybody.